Greetings. This is Celebration. My name is John Savers, and I'm your host. And today we'll continue with our recent series, Jews and Their Culture. And now, for those new to Celebration, let me mention at the outset that this is a program series which tries to better understand people's and their cultures. We focus on those matters that we think may make such better known, better understood, always aware that for the most part the viewer will have some foundation already gained through personal travel, from watching television or going to the movies, from magazines and books and so forth. Therefore, we take what might be called judicial notice of these things and proceed trying to find information which perhaps the great general viewership is not aware or not as aware of. And we think that by bringing such matters to the attention of the viewer, that the viewer can have a rounder understanding, a comprehension of the people discussed, their culture, and so forth. This is our aim, and as such it is educational, and we do try to fill in the gaps, so to speak. Now, of course, this being so, and people naturally wanting to emphasize the positive and eliminate the negative. Some people who witness the program may be a little bit disgruntled as the program is not meant to be a sort of cheerleading program for the given people, as often is the case on television, but really one which lays the facts on the table, so to speak, for the viewer to embrace, to make part of his or her basis of knowledge, and with which to make decisions which are founded on good information. So there you have it. We do struggle in this regard to bring you information from reliable sources such as reference books and so forth. But we also will use on occasion little-known books, out-of-print books, small tabloid newspapers and bulletins and so forth, which we think has credible information. And we use this also, and we think that so far these sources have proven to be accurate in their information, and so we're not uncomfortable with doing this. So with this advisory, as it were, let's just go ahead and proceed. We have of late taken a look at certain ideas, concepts which are important within Jewry. And I thought we might turn now to something which would be a little bit more exciting for the viewer. I know the viewers, I'm not trying to titillate now, mind you, but I do understand that the heavy ideas sometimes become heavy themselves, and the viewership likes occasionally to lighten up. So we do try to accommodate you a little bit in this regard. And today we're going to discuss, from the point of view of Jewry, what might be called generation or sex, or the wide area which might be embraced by the term sexuality. So with this being mentioned, certain tender minds might be ushered out from the area of the TV. I do not say that this is going to be shocking, but we'll let the chips fall where they may. So on that note, let's proceed. Sexual revolution of the 1960s precipitated great changes in attitudes towards sex and the relationship between men and women. Jewish values, on the other hand, have not changed at all. By definition, they are constant and have remained the same for more than 3,000 years since they were given to Moses and the Jewish people. Let me interrupt here to do caution you that frequently Jews use the word Jew or Jewish or Jewry when in point of fact they mean Israel or Israelite or sometimes Hebrew. These are not synonyms, and so therefore be well aware that Moses gave the law to the Israelite people and not to the Jewish people. But let's proceed now. Therefore, it is appropriate to ask, how do the Jewish attitudes towards sex compare or contrast with the Western attitudes on this subject? Can traditional Jewish restrictive laws have any relevance to people today? What are the specific Jewish values about sexuality before marriage? Is there proper Jewish behavior on a date? Now, this is a citation from Nachum Amsel, the Jewish Encyclopedia of Moral and Ethical Issues, page 260. Well, I think that it might, first of all, be useful to consider the question of marriage, why don't we? And let's do that at this point in time with an interesting citation. Deuteronomy 7:1-3 forbids a Hebrew from marrying anyone from the 7 Canaanite nations. Our rabbis interpreted that prohibition to include all non-Jews. Upon their return from the Babylonian exile, Ezra and Nehemiah forced the Jewish population to give up their non-Jewish spouses. The Talmud took the prohibition against intermarriage a step further. The Amoraim stated that an intermarriage is no marriage. That is, it does not change the status of the Jew. It requires no get, and it does not affect the line of inheritance. It does not exist. Feelings ran so high in some Jewish communities against intermarriage that frequently the parents of someone marrying a non-Jew would say Kaddish and sit Shiva for them, indicating that their child was dead. As American society became more secularized and barriers between Jews and non-Jews disappeared, there was a dramatic increase in intermarriage. The Orthodox not only continue to forbid intermarriage, they tend to ostracize the interfaith couple. The vast majority of conservative rabbis refuse to officiate at a ceremony between a Jew and a non-Jew. However, many will encourage the non-Jewish member of the couple to convert, and conversion courses have been set up for this purpose. Within many conservative congregations, there is still a noted stigma attached to an intermarried couple. The Central Conference of American Rabbis continues its position opposing intermarriage and the officiating of Reform rabbis at such marriages. However, there is tremendous pressure from Reform Jews to have their rabbis officiate, thus lending some Jewish legitimacy to the marriage ritual. Some rabbis officiate because their congregations have placed pressure on them to do so. Some honestly believe that meeting the personal needs of a Jewish family transcends the traditional prohibition against such a union. An estimated 40% of Reform rabbis officiate at intermarriages. Unlike the Orthodox and conservative communities, once a couple has intermarried, the vast majority of Reform congregations welcome such a couple with open arms. This is a citation from Rabbi David E. Kahn Lippman, The Book of Jewish Knowledge, pages 393 and 394. Well, Deuteronomy 7, 1 through 3 must have experienced at the hands of the rabbis some rather profound Duracic interpretations given the fate of Idumea. But at any rate, as for that reference, I think many of you know that Idumea is the same as Edom and the seed of Esau, and that Esau did in fact marry Canaanite women, much to the horror of Rebekah. But at any rate, it's interesting to note that were Rebekah alive today, she would be attacked by many Jewish organizations as a racist. But at any rate, we don't think of it that way ourselves. But let's go forward. One of the three ways a marriage took place in Jewish tradition was through money. A second means was by contract. The marriage contract was called the ketubah, the written document, and its form was defined quite stringently by the sages. It included the complete names of the participants, defined the marital status and price of the bride, stated the terms of the dowry, and included the price of a divorce. Its primary purpose was to note how much the husband must give his wife should he ever divorce her. In case of his death, that amount became her inheritance. This divorce amount was based on the status of the bride. A virgin bride received twice as much divorce settlement as a non-virgin bride. Upon the signing of the ketubah by the groom and the father of the bride, it became a binding contract. The document itself was usually beautifully illuminated or decorated. Now this is a citation from Rabbi David E. Kahn Lippman, The Book of Jewish Knowledge, page 152. Well, I think it's all kind of interesting. We did, in a previous program, discuss how important business was to to Jewry, to Judaism, and this seems to be, in the way, an aspect of that business consciousness. We also seem to have had something of a Judaization of the general concept, a way of looking at marriage here in the United States, when back, I think, in the 80s, perhaps even in the 70s, marriage contracts, the idea of the marriage contract with stated provisions in regard to material possessions and so forth came to the fore. I think it surely must have issued out of this Jewish consciousness in regard to marital contracts. and is sort of a cultural gift to the American people in a more general or broader way. So on that note, let's go forward. In some communities, a betrothal contract was made by the parents when their children were born. In order to be binding, it had to be accepted by the couple when they reached the age of maturity, 13 and 1 day for the boy, 12 and 1 day for the girl. American Reformed laity had problems with the sections dealing with the sexual status of the bride, virgin/non-virgin, the terms of the dowry, the divorce price, and the very idea of a man acquiring a woman. They therefore created their own non-traditional wedding document. Over the past 30 years, many new texts of ketubot, plural of ketubah, have been written by liberal Jews. A couple planning on getting married has a wide choice. The most important element of the ketubah is that it is a contract between two Jews binding their lives together. This is a citation from Rabbi David E. Kahn Lippman, The Book of Jewish Knowledge, pages 152, 153. People, let me give a caveat here. This information coming up is quite amazing and some would say inflammatory. It is information that could possibly affect the health, the good health of certain individuals. So for this reason, we call it to your attention, and those of you who feel you are vulnerable, please just excuse yourself for the moment. This is not going to be all that lengthy. Go to the kitchen and have a little water, fix yourself a nutrient or whatever, and while you're gone, we'll present the information, and by the time you come back, I'm sure we'll be done. Do take your time, however. Now, go ahead. That's right, go on, don't be bashful. Okay, it looks like most of the people who are vulnerable have now excused themselves, so let us go forward with this information. The third means of acquiring a wife was by sexual intercourse. Our sages opposed this method as immoral and demeaning, but they recognized sexual intercourse is legally binding a couple in marriage. Our tradition included all three of these methods within the marriage ceremony. Before the wedding, the ketubah is signed and read as part of the ceremony. The groom gives the bride a ring and says, "With this ring you are consecrated to me as my wife according to the law of Moses and Israel." In most modern liberal ceremonies, the bride and groom exchange rings. Two wedding customs developed as a result of biblical stories about our ancestors. The book of Genesis notes that when Rebekah first saw Jacob, she took a veil and covered herself. It therefore became traditional for the bride to put on a veil prior to the marriage ceremony. This ritual is called badakin, the covering. The Torah also describes, however, how Jacob was fooled into marrying Leah instead of Rachel. In order to ensure that bride switching didn't take place, it became a minhag, custom, for the groom to confirm that the woman being veiled was, in fact, his wife. Therefore, traditionally, the groom places the veil on his bride. Now, this is a citation again from Rabbi David E. Kahn Lippman, The Book of Jewish Knowledge, page 153. Well, folks, let us be generous in regard to definitions of ancestors and just assume the heart's in the right place and so forth. This is an interesting little anecdote, however. I believe that it also may have engendered within the Israelite people, and it probably was there beforehand, of course, but this sort of switcheroo, as it were, certainly would cause Hebrews, Israelites, to become more concerned with honesty in packaging, so to speak, and lead to, shall we say, a virtue which became quite prominent. Let me give you a citation. Emet is the Hebrew word for truth. Our tradition has always emphasized the importance of truth because it is a divine attribute. The Psalms refer to the divine as the God of truth. Our sages stated, "The seal of God is truth." Pirkei Avot says that truth is one of the pillars of the world, and Proverbs exhorts, "Remove falsehood and lying far from me." This is a citation from Rabbi David E. Kahn Lippman, The Book of Jewish Knowledge, page 397. Well, I might just mention parenthetically in regard to emet that this is a term which I think is so ingrained in the minds of the Israelite people that the tribes of Judah and Dan et al. Who went to Ireland made emet a name for their males. In fact, I happen to have uncles and so forth named Emmett. But at any rate, let's go forward. In Talmudic times, the wedding ceremony would end with the bride being escorted into the wedding chamber to fulfill the third means of acquiring a wife. This chamber was called the huppah. In Palestine, it was made from the branches of a cypress tree planted by the girl's parents at the time of her birth, and a cedar tree planted by the boy's parents at the time of his birth. The guests then partied while waiting for proof of the bride's status. Contractual money, after all, was at stake. Thus began the tradition of having a wedding feast. This is a citation from Rabbi David E. Kahn Lippman, The Book of Jewish Knowledge, page 153. Well, folks, I think you can readily understand how awkward it would be if the veil remained on the lass until after this third means of contract was established. And there could be plenty of room for a bitter marital honeymoon here. But at any rate, let's go forward with this enlightening detail. Many customs developed around the wedding ceremony. Rav Ashi once attended a wedding feast where there was too much levity. He took an expensive glass and smashed it. In reply to the shocked silence, he said, "Into every joyous occasion there should be some sorrow," and left. This is one explanation regarding the origin of breaking a glass at a wedding. New meanings were added to it, of course. Primary was the interpretation that the glass was a symbol of the destroyed temple. In the 1200s, many believed that the glass breaking was an excellent way to get rid of evil spirits who hated loud noises. It was at that time that the tradition also developed of yelling Mazel Tov, which means literally good planet. The guests were hoping for a good astrological sign for the bride and groom. Another anti-evil spirit custom was to have both bride and groom wear white, a color the demons despised. In addition, the bride would circle the huppah 7 times, and the guests would carry lit candles, all believed to be very effective at keeping away evil spirits. The carrying of 2 candles was also explained as a way to guarantee fertility. In Gematria, the numerical value of the word candle is 250. By carrying 2 candles, the accompanying celebrant thus gets the number 500, which is equal to the Hebrew words, "Be fruitful and multiply," the first commandment in the Torah. Well, this is a citation from Rabbi David E. Kahn Lippman, the Book of Jewish Knowledge, page 154. Well, one might observe that given the fertility of modern Jewish couples, it might be guessed that the candle carrying ceremony has been dispensed with. But let's go forward. In Sephardic Jewish communities, on the night before the wedding, women would participate in a special rite, the henna, to keep away the evil eye. It included painting the bride's hands red with henna to protect her against the evil eye. There are numerous marriage customs associated with wishing the couple fertility. The most common is throwing rice, wheat, nuts, or candles at the groom. Others include serving fish at the wedding meal, having the bride jump over a brass bowl filled with live fish, as people call, "May you be as fertile as the fish," and having the bride hold a baby boy at the wedding feast. This is a citation from Rabbi David E. Kahn Lippman, the Book of Jewish Knowledge, pages 154 and 155. Well, that's it, folks. A wrap. We're out of time again. This is Celebration. My name is John Savers. I'm your host. I do appreciate your tuning in. Hope to see you again next time.